Good morning everyone. So in the previous slide we have read about what are the sources of water and what do you mean by hydrology and what are the hydrological cycle, components of hydrological cycle. All of this we have been read, and what do you mean by precipitations. So now we will be reading about what are the types of precipitations. So first I have told you there are three types of precipitations. First is cyclonic precipitation, convective precipitation, and last one is orographic precipitations. So in the first is cyclonic precipitation. In the cyclonic precipitations, this precipitations is mainly caused by lifting of air mass due to the pressure difference created in an area. So from also we can say that cyclonic precipitation is divided into two categories. First is frontal precipitations, next one is non-frontal precipitations. Also we can say that in the cyclonic precipitations, mainly it is caused by the low pressure. When it is generated at some place, then the warm moisture from the surrounding area rushes to the zone of low pressure with the Bowlett pressure, and then the warm moisture rises up with the swirling motion and get condensed at the high altitude, and ultimately the heavy rainfall occurs. That process is also known as cyclonic precipitations. So there are two types. First is in the frontal precipitations, when the moving warm moisture mass is obstructed by the zone of the cold air mass, then the warm air mass rises up to the higher altitude where it gets condensed and heavy rainfall occurs. So you can see here in the frontal precipitation, the warm moisture rises up and the warm front, and here it is the cold air mass it is placed. So we can say that when the moving warm moisture mass is obstructed by the zone mass of the cold air, then the warm moisture, you can see the warm moisture here rises up to a high altitude, and then it get condensed and heavy rainfall occurs. That is known as frontal precipitations. Okay, so next is non-frontal precipitations. So what do you mean by non-frontal precipitations? When the air mass rushes into the low pressure area, then the air mass from the low pressure area rises to the higher altitude. At higher altitude, this air mass gets condensed and heavy rainfall occurs. So you can see here the picture of images that is of non-frontal. You can see the high pressure, low pressure and high pressure. So when the air mass rushes to a low pressure area, then the air mass from the low pressure area rises up to a higher altitude. You can see it can rise up to a higher altitude, and at higher altitude the air mass gets condensed. After that the heavy rainfall occurs. So next is convective precipitation. So in the convective precipitations, mainly this rainfall, it is mainly in the tropical countries where the equator is close to the ground surface. So we can say that in the tropical countries where on a particular hot day ground surface gets heated unequally, then the warm air is lifted to the higher altitude and the cooler air takes its place, and the warm moisture is get condensed at higher altitude, and the rainfall of heavy intensity and of a short duration. So it is in the tropical countries where the equator is close near to the sun. So next is orographic precipitation. You can see the diagram of convective precipitation here. So next is orographic precipitation. It is most important precipitation, and it is responsible for the most of the precipitation in India. And here you can say it mainly occurs when the air mass laden with the moisture and strikes any topographic barriers and cannot move further, so rises up and condensed at higher altitude and cause precipitations. It is mainly in the mountain regions when the moisture, when obstructed with some mountains, then it rises up to a higher altitude. After that it gets condensed and the rainfall occurs. So next is measurement of the rainfall. So how we can measure the rainfall? So what do you mean by measurement of rainfall? One instrument it is there to measure the rainfall, that is known as rain gauge. So we can say that the measurement of rainfall is generally done by an instrument that is called rain gauge, and rainfall is mainly measured or expressed in the millimeters, and it also works on the principle that the amount of rainfall collected in small area will represent the total amount of rainfall in the large area provided by the meteorological department on both the areas. So here the one instrument that is known as rain gauge, it is used for the measurement of the rainfall, and it is mainly expressed in the millimeters, and it is measured in the terms of a depth. So next we will be reading about what are the types of rain gauge in the next slide. Thank you.